Hi everyone, we're Team SARI. Today we've got Maria, we've got Ali,
Yeah.
Josiah, and I'm Lucy. This week we wanted to show you a video about the Windrush generation. So we'll watch the clip and then have a discussion after.
Windrush. What is Windrush? Windrush is a term used to describe the mass migration of a generation of people who came as invited guests from the Caribbean after World War II. The first of these ships to bring people to Britain was called the Empire Windrush. Hundreds of people from the Caribbean travelled excitedly for 3 weeks to help the mother country, as they called it. Some had fought for Britain during the war and now hoped to create new life and find work. They were asked to help rebuild a war-torn Britain by the Prime Minister of the day after it had been bombed during the Blitz. But the streets were paved with a cold welcome, not the golden opportunities they had expected.
Hackney Road, the road is named, I think you know about St. Paul's and the Hackney Road area. I couldn't see anything, but I went up to the door as far as I can see, and I said, rooms to rent. And I said, no gypsies, no Irish, no dogs, and no colored. I still read about. A lady came out and she just banged the door. She didn't ask good morning, good evening, what is it? Look out, bam.
Many were shocked at the conditions in the UK, as they had only seen royalty and rich people in newsreels and photographs. They were surprised to see smoke coming out of the top of houses. They didn't have chimneys in the Caribbean where it was tropical and mostly hot.
When we came, they were still under the British rule. It's their own British people. We call ourselves British, but the native British don't recognise us as British. They look at us as foreigners, but we were British from birth, even though we didn't born in Britain.
The Windrush generation eventually settled here and made new lives for their children. Like many other migrant communities, they have made significant contributions to our society, including working on the front line of many industries such as healthcare and nursing at the beginning of the NHS. In sport, their children help teams win World Cups, become world champions, or share Olympic glory. Together we enjoy their Caribbean food, annual carnivals, and a host of stars in entertainment as showbiz personalities. Imagine arriving in a foreign country with little or nothing and have to be able to navigate new languages, customs, and sometimes fleeing trauma. Many migrants have created family structures against the backdrop of racism, political, security, and economic challenges. Do you have a migration story in your family? What does it have in common with the story of the Windrush generation? What do you think it would be like to move to a new country or place? What would you be feeling?
So we hope you enjoyed that clip. My first question goes to Maria. I guess, Maria, do you have a migration story in your family?
Yeah, so my dad had migrated from Pakistan in the 80s, and my granddad before that had migrated as well from Pakistan a long time before that, in about the 40s. But yeah, what about you, Ali? Do you have a migration story in your family?
Oh, absolutely, yes. So that was a wonderful video. I mean, for myself, my granddad, so my parents and granddad are originally from Bangladesh, which is used to be East Pakistan, and then they had the independence in the 1970s. So my granddad served for the Second World War. He contributed towards that. Then he went back to Bangladesh, and then my dad came over in the 60s, like early 60s. And since then there was all sorts of challenges, and then slowly my dad, got his brothers and rest of his family one by one. And then this is how we come about in the 80s, really. Migration was very difficult. During our time, it was very challenging because we had to grow up to kind of educate our own parents, get them to speak English as well, because English wasn't their first language, whereas for us it was. So it was very challenging times. But So that's my story when it comes to migration. Yeah.
I think that's both some really interesting stories there. Josiah, what do you reckon these stories have in common with the Windrush clip?
Yeah, so it's all about coming to a new land that you don't really know and trying to settle and find your feet there really, really quickly. There's so many challenges, more than that were just in the clip and more than we could speak about in a short video. Things that we don't even think about. I know my grandmother never saw snow before, and she thought the sky was falling when she first saw snow. When she first came on the boat, she didn't have enough clothes to stay warm, because she left somewhere so warm and came somewhere so cold she didn't even have enough clothes to keep warm initially. So it's all about coming to a completely alien environment and finding your feet really, really quickly.
Yeah, I think that when I think about my dad and my granddad, I think about the fact that there was probably a lot of financial struggles. There's probably a lot of cultural differences that were very different to, you know, a society that wasn't as diverse back in that day compared to what it is today. And, you know, I guess what kind of feelings would that feel, guys?
I think you'd be really excited. I know my nan was. She thought this was going to be like a whole new chapter of her life and be an excellent opportunity. So she was really, really excited to come. And I know a lot of people are, because it's an adventure. A lot of people saw it as an adventure as well. However, when you get there and you find things a lot more difficult, you then become fearful. And I think if everyone was really welcoming, we get to make people feel comfortable, and you get rid of those feelings of fear, and you get to celebrate some of the things that new cultures bring, like the clip showed.
That's interesting. How about you, Ali? How do you think it would feel?
For my parents, I will think, because those are the kind of questions earlier on I did ask my parents as I was growing up, as I was a child. Apprehensive, also the feeling of unknown as well. The expectations they had, bearing in mind, you know, fleeing very like third world countries, for instance, like India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, they had a high expectations, and you will find like within the South Asian and African Caribbean community, families tend to be big. So for my dad, for instance, he had a high expectation where he had to send some of his wealth back to Bangladesh to feed his own family. And then slowly, you know, one by one, he brought them into the UK. It's also, unemployment was a big deal for my dad. Majority of his expertise was in the tailoring industry. So, you know, factories, you know, making leather coats and garments and that sort of stuff. And also language barrier was massive, even for ourselves, like growing up, you know, having to speak 2 different languages as well. You know, although our mother tongue to be English, and also, you know, speaking Bengali as well, because that's the first language of my parents. So it's very difficult, very challenging times, but we come a long way. Okay, so yeah, there was a lot of struggles. And I think like with the modern day migrants, I think it's exactly what they're feeling right now as well. And I could understand where they're at, you know, the fear of unknown, you know, also coming out in the public, in society, they're a little bit anxious because they don't know about certain culture, our British culture, for instance, they might not be aware of. So there's a hell of a lot of learning, but eventually people do come round. And I think we all have a responsibility to kind of spread a bit of diversity and ask one another, share our ideas and our culture. And this is where we can make a more happier and fruitful society, I think. Yeah.
I most definitely agree. And I think from my background, obviously I'm British born. I don't actually have a migration story. That's why I think hearing your stories is so valuable to me, and understanding what I can take from it and how I can be more mindful of different cultures. It is my duty and responsibility, like you say, Ali, to teach British people, you know, how it feels and what it feels to be like. And it's my duty to be more welcoming, because other people have not necessarily had the nicest of life experiences compared to myself. but we've all got that duty, so it's quite nice to hear.
And I think when it comes to diversity or migration or Windrush, you know, I think it's a wonderful thing, because if you look at different communities, so you look at the African Caribbean community, you look at the South Asian, Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi community, the contribution like we make generally in our society to make it a diverse country we live in, to make it multicultural, such as, you know, we have like food, you know, my family background now come from a catering background. Like, you know, a lot of my older brothers, they're all in the kind of Indian restaurant trade right now. They're making a fortune out of that. So this is a way like what, you know, I would say migration kind of brought in for us as British people, you know, different kind of culture, different kind of cuisine, food that we see everywhere that we could, you know, taste and, you know, cherish and also be grateful about. You know, there's a lot of stuff that I've learned being a British person as well. There's a lot of stuff that I wasn't aware of my own culture, bearing in mind I was a British born person. So I had to balance and learn more about my parents' culture, about the South Asian culture, you know. So, you know, every way you look at it, there are pros and cons as well. But one of the most beautiful things, and we all can do, is show our appreciation, and we all can contribute towards diversity and multiculturalism. It's just be more open, be more transparent. You know, if we're not sure about something, there's a lot of stuff that I don't know. Like I said, I don't know much about my culture. There's other stuff like other communities that I'm not aware of. Just being South Asian, it doesn't necessarily mean I know about every community, because that is not the case. So, you know, we all have, you know, something to learn and kind of take from different communities, different culture. And this is one of the most beautiful things that we have that makes us British. So I can't stress that anymore. I just find that really fascinating. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think like Ali said, we all need to just celebrate diversity and celebrate everybody when we meet them, and also just show our appreciation as well.
Wow, I think that's it then. If anyone else has got anything to say, that'll probably be us for the week. Thanks to everyone for listening to the clip today. We hope you enjoyed the discussion. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to forward them over and we'll do our best to answer them next week. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.